If you have opened a trading app and seen the same share listed twice, once under NSE and once under BSE, at two slightly different prices, you are not looking at two different companies. You are looking at one company being sold in two different shops. India has added tens of millions of new Demat accounts in the last few years, and almost every one of those people hits this exact question on their first order. Which one do I tap? Get it wrong on the wrong kind of trade, and you can end up holding a position you thought you had already closed. So here is the direct answer before anything else. NSE and BSE are two separate stock exchanges. Both sit in Mumbai. Both are regulated by the same watchdog, SEBI. A share of a company bought on the NSE and the same share bought on the BSE are identical. Same ownership, same dividend, same entry in your Demat account. The difference is never in the stock, it is in the venue. NSE is the younger exchange where far more money actually moves. BSE is the older exchange with far more companies listed on it. That is enough to place your first order. But the reason India ended up with two of these at all is a much better story, and it ends somewhere genuinely absurd. One of these two exchanges is a listed company whose own shares you are not allowed to buy on its own exchange. Stick with me and you will know which exchange your broker is quietly routing your order to, why the two prices on your screen never quite match, and the one mistake that turns a day trade into an accidental delivery. Let's start with the old one, because BSE was there first by more than a century. In the 1850s, about 20 stockbrokers in Bombay had nowhere to work. So they met outdoors, under banyan trees, and traded on handshakes. As the crowd grew, they kept getting moved on, until in 1874 they settled on a street that is still called Dalal Street today. Dalal means broker. The street is literally named after them. In 1875, they made it official and formed the Native Share and Stock Brokers Association. That association is what we now call the Bombay Stock Exchange. It is the oldest stock exchange in Asia, and it predates the country it operates in by more than 70 years. For the next 119 years, trading there worked exactly the way you have seen in old films. Men in a pit, shouting, waving hand signals, writing on paper slips. Open outcry. It only stopped in 1995 when BSE switched to a screen-based system called Bolt. Now think about what that means. Until the mid-90s, if you wanted to buy shares in India, you were relying on a broker in a room in Mumbai to shout your order across a crowded floor and then tell you honestly what price he got. There was no screen you could check. You took his word for it. That is the setup. Here is what broke it. In 1992, a stockbroker named Harshad Mehta was found to have pulled enormous sums out of the banking system using fake bank receipts and pushed that money into shares. Prices went vertical, then collapsed. The damage was not just financial. The scam showed the whole country that the market was opaque, that it was controlled by the brokers themselves, and that an ordinary investor had no way to see what was actually happening to their own order. The government had already been thinking about this. A committee under Manohar Farwani, set up in 1991, had recommended building a modern national exchange. After 1992, that recommendation stopped being a suggestion and became urgent. The National Stock Exchange was incorporated that same year, recognized by SEBI in 1993, and started trading in 1994. And it was built as the opposite of what came before. No trading floor, no pit, no shouting. Electronic and screen-based from the very first day, with terminals connected by satellite, so a person in a small town could see the same price at the same moment as a broker in Mumbai. That is the real difference between these two exchanges, and everything else follows from it. BSE is what the Indian market grew out of. NSE is what the Indian market was rebuilt into. Now let's get practical, because you are here to place an order. Each exchange publishes its own headline index. BSE publishes the Sensex, which tracks 30 large companies. NSE publishes the Nifty 50, which tracks 50 companies across a wider spread of sectors. When the news says the market is up, they are almost always quoting one of those two. They move together nearly all the time because they are measuring the same economy through slightly different windows. Then there is size, and this is where people get confused because both exchanges are bigger, just at different things. BSE has roughly 5,900 listed companies. That is the most of any exchange on earth. NSE has somewhere around 2,800, so BSE wins on count by a lot, mostly because it carries a long tail of small and medium companies that never moved across. But NSE handles about 93% of the money that changes hands in the cash equity market. 93. That is not a lead. That is the whole market with a rounding error attached. Here's why that matters to you. Turnover is liquidity, and liquidity is what determines whether your order fills at the price you saw. On a large company, on a normal-sized order, you will not notice the difference. On a thinly traded small cap, you will, and that is where the busier exchange earns its keep. Derivatives are the one place the story has actually flipped recently. NSE ran that segment almost unopposed for years. BSE has clawed back real ground to the point that by 2026, the two were splitting options business between them rather than one simply owning it. If someone tells you BSE is a museum, that is out of date. Now the part I promised you. BSE is not just an exchange, it is also a company with shareholders, and its shares are traded publicly. So where do you buy shares in BSE? On the NSE. You cannot buy them on the BSE. That is not an accident. SEBI does not allow a stock exchange to list on its own platform, and once you say it out loud, the reason is obvious. The exchange would be the marketplace, the referee writing the rules, and the company being judged by those rules all at the same time. So each exchange has to list on the other one. NSE has argued that it should be allowed to list on itself. SEBI has not moved, two rivals, each holding the other's shares on their books. That is the trade. So which one should you actually use? For almost everyone, it does not matter, and here is why. The same stock listed on both exchanges will quote at slightly different prices, but we are talking paise, not rupees. Professional traders buy on the cheaper venue and sell on the dearer one within seconds, and that closes the gap continuously. Your broker's app will usually just show you the better of the two and route you there. 3 things are worth checking anyway. First, some companies are listed on only one of the two. A lot of smaller and SME names sit on BSE alone. If you cannot find a stock, you may simply be looking at the wrong exchange. Second, if you are buying and holding, you are free. Shares sit in your demat account as shares, not as NSE shares or BSE shares. Buy on one today, sell on the other next year, no problem. Third, and this is the one that catches people out. An intraday position has to be closed on the same exchange you opened it on. Buy on NSE in the morning, sell on BSE in the afternoon, and you have not closed anything. You now owe delivery on one exchange and you are short on the other, and your broker will settle it for you at a price you did not choose. Check the exchange tag on both legs of a day trade. Every time. Both exchanges settle the same way, by the way. India moved to T+1 settlement across the board, so your shares land the next working day. There is also an optional same-day cycle running on the top 500 stocks on both venues. So, to put it all in one line, the stock is the same, the venue is different, NSE has the money, and BSE has the history and the headcount, and unless you are trading intraday or hunting a small cap, you can stop worrying about which button you tapped. Now I want to know one thing from you. When you placed your very first order, did you even notice which exchange it went to, or did you find out afterwards? Tell me in the comments, because I suspect most people find out afterwards.